Emotionally unavailable.
Welcome to Emotionally Unavailable, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of emotional availability and intimacy. I'm your host, Melissa Hepner, and I can't tell you how excited I am to have you join me on this journey of self-discovery and connection. Whether you're navigating the complexities of relationships or exploring your own emotional landscape, this podcast is here to inspire, empower, and entertain. So get cozy and let's explore the depths of human emotions together. Hello, today's episode is late. I'm sorry about that. So I'm going to hurry and do this intro and get it put up. Today's guest is Craig Meriwether, CHT CMS. He is a clinical hypnotherapist, a certified medical hypnosis specialist, a neuro-linguistic programming specialist. Craig is a mindset coach and clinical hypnotherapist, helping people eliminate negative emotions and trauma so they can reach their full potential. He is a certified clinical hypnotherapist, medical hypnosis specialist. I've already said that. Founder of Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, helping people eliminate the negative emotions and limiting beliefs that may be keeping them from reaching their full potential. For over 12 years, Craig has been helping people heal from early childhood trauma, helping cancer patients with pain control, veterans with PTSD, students with test anxiety, children with nightmares, entrepreneurs with confidence, athletes with peak performance, and anyone who may be dealing with overwhelm, fear, and anxiety. He has created ACE Any Test, the most comprehensive course for test anxiety relief, so people can eliminate anxiety around exams, auditions, job interviews, and public speaking, as well as increase confidence and self-esteem. There will be a link in the show notes for that. He's also the author of the best-selling program Depression 180, about which psychologist Dr. Stephen Gergovich, clinical assistant professor of medicine at the Center for Integrative Medicine, University of Arizona, says Craig Meriwether's book is the most comprehensive and user-friendly resource to help ourselves and loved ones struggling with depression. I highly recommend this book to everyone that wants help turning their depression around. There will be a link for that as well. Craig's also created the Mind Mastery Blueprint and Life Transformation Kit and is a featured author in the New York Times best-selling book Pearls of Wisdom, 30 Inspirational Ideas to Live Your Best Life Now. Along with Jack Canfield, Marcy Shimoff, and Janet Atwood, there will be a link to the Mind Mastery Blueprint. Craig was the host of the popular podcast Tipping Point Radio from 2012 to 2015, interviewing such experts in mind, body, and spiritual transformation as Marianne Williamson, Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Teal Swan, Bruce Lipton, Jazz Great, John McLaughlin, and many more, which is super fucking impressive. And then he's got a bunch of other social media, so I'm going to make sure I include a link to all of that. And I had a great time with Craig. I feel like we're going to be good friends, and he was really fun to talk to and like not precious at all, considering he's got all this like cool credentials under his belt. And yeah, we're really connected. So anyway, okay, I'm going to go so I get this episode up, but happy Memorial Day. And here's me and Craig.
Emotionally unavailable.
Hi.
Oh, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can perfectly.
My headphones are going to die soon.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's super cute. Hold on.
Yeah, that's the deal with wireless, I guess. You always die when you least want them to.
Well, it doesn't like me.
Oh no.
It doesn't like me to use the mic if I don't have the headphones. So I guess I'm not going to use either today, which is just fine. I don't always. And you're not wearing headphones, so that makes it better anyway, because if one of us does and the other doesn't, then I get an echo, and that's always fun. Right. Okay, well, how are you today? It's so good to meet you.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, I know we've been going back and forth for a little bit, so it's fine to finally meet up.
Yeah, I was reading through your profile again earlier, and wow, clinical hypnotherapist, certified medical hypnosis specialist, neuro-linguistic programming specialist, I am super jazzed about this ACE any test thing.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
gonna try to get my kids into this because I mean I know it works. Like when I took my licensure exam, I had this programming really for a long time that I was just a terrible test taker. You know, like it just fundamentally it wasn't going to happen for me to like pass a test on the first try. But then, like through college, I got a little better about that. But it wasn't until I took some certification tests years ago that I was like, oh, okay, I kind of understand how these work, and I don't get myself all worked up. But my clinical licensure was like, it was very how you think, you know, like it was like, what's your rationale behind this? And I followed all the advice of the people who of the study program that I purchased, like halfway through, pause your test, go take some, you know, nutrition,
Yeah.
whatever. And I did that. But I also like told myself I'm a great test taker. Like,
Yeah.
you know, whenever I zone out, that's okay. I'm going to get my focus and I'm going to be right back. Like, it's okay if you catch yourself zoning out, and different strategies for like, once you reach that wall where you're so bored of what you're doing, you know? So I love that you have a whole thing about that, because I try to teach my kids, but you know how it is with your own kids, they just don't listen. But like,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, how you tell yourself you're going to do is how you're going to do. My daughter's doing state testing right now. And I've like, remember, you're a good test taker. You know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Exactly. And that could be a big part of the conversation. I mean, not just with tests, but with life in general. But I think people can identify with the whole test things, and whether it's a job interview or if you're a actor or musician doing an audition or giving a speech, you know, in front of a big audience, or TED Talk, or running the meeting. And there's those nerves. And I've met people who are the opposite of you. They were fine in high school and getting their bachelor's, but then they go for their master's, and all of a sudden the anxiety shows up. And
Oh, that makes sense to me. But yeah, that is different.
you know, they're getting in their 50s and 60s and want to switch, you know, retire and become a part
Mhm.
estate agent. They haven't taken a test in, you know, whatever, 35 years.
Yes, it's intimidating.
Yeah. And now they got to pass the, you know, real estate exam, or let
Which isn't
alone.
easy. Well, and especially we hear things about different types of exams too that really psych us out. Because I have never done realty, but all of the people that I know that have are like,
Mhm.
oh my God, that test is so hard. That would psych me out so bad.
Mhm.
I'd be like, oh, well.
Because you're getting feedback from people
Mhm.
who've had taken it, you know, let alone, I know a friend of mine's an auto mechanic, and they have to take certification or licensing for the state every 5 years or something, whatever it is. And it's it's like a 2-day test.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just a one and done.
No, he took it a couple of years, my age. He's in his late 50s, and he's um, had to take it a few years ago. And it was like over 2 days for 3 or 4 hours or something.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so if we talk about mindset, this is the thing that and I love mindset work. I love it. But where I feel like half of the people who are talking a lot about it are getting it wrong is the things that you believe came from somewhere. And we can't
Hmm.
just ignore that and be like, all you got to do is, you know,
Yeah.
like, sure, the root of a test anxiety, pretty easy to figure out. You can a couple shifts, that is very fast. And even I did a free coaching cycle with someone who offered it because she was on my show. And I was like, why not, you know? And it was about mindset, and we worked on like how to get yourself in the energy that you want to be in. Perfect. I don't have to go real deep and explore anything to do that, right? I just decide how I want to feel today. But I feel like there's this super masculine take on mindset.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I
If
get
you
it.
look at the big motivational guy speakers, I mean, you know who I'm talking about. It's
Yeah.
just very like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't disagree. And
Mhm.
you can't bypass emotions to switch your mindset 100%. So what is
Yeah.
your thought on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's interesting that you put it that way, because it really opens up a bigger discussion on not only kind of the masculine influence on peak potential, you know, getting to your peak potential. Because what I find frustrating is obviously a lot of those guys are type A personalities, the go, go, go. I mean, even Tony Robbins, and not to take away anything that Tony Robbins done, I've been inspired and motivated by him for the last 40 years. I mean, that guy started in the 80s,
Right.
1980s. But, you know, part of his deal is he has a infarcted brain tumor pressing on his adrenal gland in his brain. And so
Does he
it's like,
really?
yeah, yeah. That's
That
why
makes
he's
so much
like,
sense.
yeah, that's why he's like 6'7" and 250.
Oh my
And
God.
he's so
Wow.
big because, or it's not adrenal gland, whatever. Is one of his, there's a brain tumor
The
pressing on
pituitary.
that keeps producing growth
Yeah.
hormone.
It's on this
So,
pituitary, I bet. Wow,
oh,
that's
pituitary
amazing.
gland. Yeah, thank you. Pituitary gland, and it's and here's a great word that I learned directly just from this situation: infarcated, which
You
means it
right?
imploded on itself instead of exploded. It imploded, infarcated, and because of that, it's pressing on that gland, therefore creating growth hormone. Therefore, he has all this energy. You
Right.
know,
Well, and when you mess the pituitary tumors right there are pretty common. The infarct is not. But when you mess with that gland, your entire personality and your risk taking changes. Like
yeah,
those people, of course, Tony Robbins doesn't care about like if you make fun of him. Like, you know, that makes so much. Thank you for telling me that. I had no idea. But that's such a great example of what I'm talking about because he is loud and proud. And I want everyone to reach whatever level of success their heart desires and however they want to do it. But I feel like there's some danger in this area because you take a guy specifically because Tony Robbins, I mean, I've known women who love him too, but you know, his brand is pretty male driven. But you take a guy who's hypo aroused, just lost in the dark, doesn't know how he got where he got, and you're just throwing a bunch of motivational words at him. And then he has to wonder why he's the one that it's not working for. Like
yeah.
there's just other work to be done, I feel like. And I know that you are doing, because if you're doing hypnosis, you're going within the subconscious. So, I mean, I get that. But I just feel like we're on this little dangerous path with, I feel like mindset's a buzzword. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be because it is everything. It is everything. But we can't use it like it doesn't matter. Like it's
Right.
not the most
Well,
important piece.
that's another great point you're bringing up because what I've noticed, and I've been, I don't know, I hate to say it, somewhat addicted to Instagram over the last month or so for some, I can see my mind getting hooked into what they're doing, and I find it
Yeah.
fascinating. But what at least Tony Robbins was giving you an hour, 2 hours, 15 hours at his trainings, let alone a week-long training. Now you got what's Instagram, 3 minutes or less.
Yeah, they're
And
calling it micro dosing.
yeah, and it's like, how do you, because I hear people doing the personal growth of the self-motivation and all that stuff on Instagram. At TikTok, I think you get a bit longer, 10 minutes or so. But people want those or I don't know if they want it, but they're getting those bite-sized pieces of motivation, and a lot of it doesn't make sense because you're not getting the hour prelude into, and to help with that, here's what you can do. Because
Right.
the other thing, here's what you can do about it, as opposed to just do this. And it's like, well, that doesn't work for most of us because we haven't done the work you've done.
Right. Exactly.
Just
I'm
get up
always
get up
cognizant of
talk
that. Like we remember where we were the first time we had a mindset shift, an aha moment where it like permeated the rest of our existence because it was like, oh, wow, like I've been looking at that all wrong. And it's a lot easier when I feel like my entire DNA has been unraveled and put back together because of, you know, an understanding in the way my brain was working and how it can work better now. How am I supposed to like translate that in a little, like I'm guilty of it too. I'm out here trying to market my programs and stuff and, you know, putting stuff on Instagram in little bite-sized carousels or a video or whatever. And yeah, I mean, and I'm only focusing on the parts that, you know, are attention grabbers and whatever. I mean, that's what that's all designed to do, but it's not even half the story.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think the unfortunate part of, the generation that's growing up with Instagram and TikTok is, and I don't know how, because you read these studies that people have, or the new information, who knows if it's real or not.
Right.
So is anybody really digesting a 300-page book on mindset or motivation or focus or anything like that? Or are they just, well, I can get it from this, minute and a half video of somebody's screen
Right.
with their face right in the camera?
That's
It's
so
like, why
true.
read a book? Why
I
read a
hate
book?
those videos. The super loud, screamy ones where they're like, acting like they're at a church pulpit. And I'm like, baby, this is not a revival. I don't know what you're doing up there, but it's not. It's working for you, and I can see that, and I can see some other people following you, but that's not for me. But even like, I talk about this way too much because I'm really not like talking shit, but like Mel Robbins throws out a phrase like let them, and then I've listened to some of the Audible books, so she tries her best to explain it. But the thing is like just saying like let them, and she even admits this, that when you just say let them, you close off a piece of your heart to that person in order to like bear through the whole like, well, I guess they're just going to do whatever and I'm going to do this. But even the way it's explained doesn't quite explain what it means to be so full of yourself that you are okay not trying to make other people change their mind about you, or understanding that the things people do don't have anything to do with you. Like let them is a very catchy phrase, but it's not even a fraction of the information needed.
Because you need that 350-page book to really dive in deeply, because people are going to experience that phrase and the consequences of that phrase differently, depending on the situation, depending on the person they're interacting with. And so you need some guideposts on how to handle that. Yeah, that's nice. Just say no. Stand up for yourself and say no. Okay, but there's consequences.
Yeah.
Saying no
Yes.
to your elderly mother who has berated you all your life, to your brother or sister, to your best friend who really takes advantage of you. There are consequences to doing that. Yeah, that probably feels good in the moment. What's going to happen in a month? And it's not to say maybe it's great. Maybe it's absolutely great stuff is going to happen as you put boundaries around you, and you need to have boundaries. But sometimes there needs to be some, by the way, when you say no, here are 5 possible reactions from that other person.
They're not going to take it well, honey. And here's what you have to do when they don't. God, that's something new for me, actually. Like, those are things I knew. But as a person who's just really dipping my toes into the area of being vulnerable with people, like it really has been a struggle. Not because I don't mind sharing stuff after the fact or whatever, but in real time when I'm struggling, to go ask somebody for help of any kind is still very tough for me. And what I learned the last couple of weeks is like, ooh, there's my negativity bias. Because the second they responded in a way I didn't like, I was like, and this is exactly why I don't share with people and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, there you go. Finally, you heard yourself say it. Like, this is your sign that you're just going to have to learn to create safety within yourself. Like, no, people aren't going to get it right all the time. How can they? They're just now learning how to show up for me. I've never let them ever. I've done everything I could to be hyper independent about so many things my entire life. So like, yeah, they're new at this too. And it doesn't have to mean anything other than we're all growing in this and it's fine. But when I heard myself saying like, this is exactly why, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I finally caught it, because I will get very self-righteous, they're toxic or they're not showing up for me. But literally, Craig, I've pushed people away my entire life from this one thing. I want you to show up. I'm scared to be vulnerable. So I'm defensive the whole time I'm even sharing, the whole time, waiting for you to give me one hint that you aren't going to do this perfectly. And now I'm going to push you away because you just don't know how to be my friend, and I'm a better friend than you are, and blah, 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 all the things. So that's not a problem anymore. But, you know, like, it's not hard for me to get into a situation where I'm like, oh, I guess we can't be friends because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do it. Like, but when I set boundaries, I mean, I remember hearing the first time someone said, well, when you set boundaries with people who aren't used to them, it feels like abandonment. And I've learned to sit and keep myself very regulated, anticipating their response, because I've learned there hasn't been a single time that I expressed discomfort with somebody else's actions, or B, just set a simple boundary that I didn't get all hell broken loose, like every single time. And I just have to learn that also doesn't mean they don't love me, and it also doesn't mean they don't care. This is just their initial primitive reaction to a boundary. They feel abandoned. I can sit and stay calm and let them process that on their own. And as I've gotten better at that too, because that would have been like an automatic disqualifier of friendship too for me. But as I've gotten better at letting people just process and not be perfect, and getting a little more comfortable with things being messy sometimes, we're all doing, like, we're showing up for each other, you know?
Yeah. And we're human beings, and we want to be there they're our friends, they're our family, and they annoy us, and sometimes they don't show up for us, and we've taught them how to treat us. And when we change the rules, it's ripping off that Band-Aid, and that can pull some hairs sometimes when you rip off that Band-Aid. And so it can be painful. But you have, and it depends on what you want from that relationship, of course. And sometimes you have to be there for them as you put up the boundaries. But it's almost like we're in this, like, life is this big education, and we've gone from kindergarten, and we're now getting, about to be done with our master's degree, and we're heading off to our PhD. And once we get our PhD, maybe that's the, last day that we are here. But it's one thing after another, and maybe that's something to celebrate. It can be exhausting, though, as I'm getting older and older. So, another lesson I got to learn.
Yeah.
Like, be a human being and be a nice person, and be in a relationship. I met my wife when we were 19. So I was 19. We met in December of 1986, and we started dating in 1987. So we're right out of high school, a year out of high school. We're now 57. And that's we're continually growing. I mean, we started off in kindergarten, and now I guess we're getting our master's degree. It's just tough.
Yeah, it is.
And the kids get older, and then that's a whole different relationship and situation, and
Yes.
our businesses, and what was family time in the evening, now working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to keep a business afloat. And it's constant, never-ending learning. And something, speaking of, kind of the masculine personal growth people, but Harv Eker was somebody I was following back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I think he's kind of retired and doesn't do much anymore, but in terms of that realm. But his kind of thing was correct and continue. You can lie on the floor and beat yourself up, or just get up and continue on. And I always like that. And I tell my son,
I like that too.
Correct and continue. This is lessons. And I tell people, especially when we're working with them with hypnotherapy and things, it's like, you only fail if you don't get up. You just learned more information. You can decide how to use that information, and hopefully you use it to propel yourself forward. But you only fail if you don't get up. And sometimes it hurts, and you got to lie there for a minute.
Sure.
You only fail if you don't get up. And so correct and continue. Okay.
I love that.
That door didn't open, or that was the wrong room or whatever. It's okay. Keep going down the hallway and find a different door.
Well, and we're so hard on ourselves. The more we know, the more we hold ourselves to the cross, that, like, we're supposed to do that correctly every time because now we know better. But, like, I kind of, like, compare that to how pissed I'd get at myself for simple, like, multiplication errors because I was rushing through or whatever. Like, it is as simple as correct and continue. Like, you see that you made an error, fix it and move on. Like, why do we need to assign meaning to that?
Yeah. And of course, another aspect, just thinking about the Tony Robbins pituitary gland kind of thing, a lot of this, sometimes as we grow older, our hormones change, maybe too much testosterone, maybe not enough testosterone in men, and all sorts of, things going on with menopause, let alone, of course, going on the female side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes your motivation. That changes your ability to just, manage stress. And stress may be getting bigger and deeper. The pile of stress may be getting bigger and deeper.
Absolutely.
And for hormonal changes, and you're just getting older in an older body. I can't handle life like I did in my 20s. I used to stay up all night going to concerts. Hey, let's drive to San Diego. Let's drive up to LA and go see a concert. And then
go to work with like 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah, and go to school the next day or go to work the next day or whatever. And I can't do that. I can't go without 8 hours of sleep. I'm a mess. And so as you go and you change, and it's like that's affecting, of course, and as you grow older, you're getting more information about life and how life works, how relationships works. That's going to affect how you relate to other people and to life in general, the news of the world.
Yeah.
And it's not just, and that's, again, going back to what we were talking about a little bit ago, that those minute-long inspirational videos of just go do it, and it's like, yeah, but there's a lot of other factors involved that may not all just be mindset. Mindset's a big part of it, obviously.
So many factors, but that's what I'm saying. Nobody's taking in account all the factors when they're just screaming at somebody. And I don't mind that the content exists. I don't mind that, because you can't do it all, right? What I mind, though, is why isn't there more? Like, why? Because these people, not just Tony Robbins, there's these people who are literally teaching in a coaching business or up on a stage what we're saying that, those 1 minute sound bites do, and they're never teaching people how to address the root of their problems. Or even how to feel a feeling. Like, if we're not experiencing feelings, you can't do a lot to shift your mindset if you don't understand why you've been overthinking to begin with, because you don't know how to feel.
Yeah. I saw one a couple weeks ago, and in and of itself, it's a beautiful phrase, and I might mess it up a little bit, but he was talking to somebody like that probably have, what if you're okay? What if you're all right? What if you're not the problem? The situation you're dealing with, what if you're okay and there's nothing wrong with you? That's what it was. There's nothing wrong with you. And in and of itself, a beautiful phrase, a nice thing to see on a bumper sticker as you're driving through traffic. But having worked with people in the situations they've been in, even like when they were children, and the kind of abuse they have gone through, the horrific stuff people have gone through at the hands of their own families. And it's like, okay, it's more to it than just, what if there's nothing wrong with you?
Right, because
a lot of deep
this
hurt.
person has to know why they thought there was something wrong with them to begin with. Where did that come from?
They may not know. I work with a lot of people who just, I don't know why.
I didn't either until I started doing the work. I had no idea.
Yeah, because sometimes that subconscious mind wants to put that veil around it because it hurts so much.
It does.
And it was extraordinarily traumatizing. And you were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, teenager, you're in your early 20s. And yeah, that hurt. That was painful. And you may want to block that out just so you can deal with life. I mean, there's something like, what a lot of neurobiologists are saying, conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. Subconscious mind is making up 95, maybe even 97% of mind. And so, yeah, that's great. Running your immune system, running your digestive system, beating your heart, taking a baby from day one to being an adult, all stuff we don't have to think about. It's holding on to those habits of like tying your shoes and zipping up your jacket and driving a car and riding a bicycle and walking, all those things. And that's great. We don't have to think about any of that. But it's also holding on to a lot of that emotional pain. One, as a protection device. It doesn't want you to experience it again. What better way to hold in, like, oh, this new situation I'm in as an adult looks like that thing that happened to me when I was a kid, slightly.
Yep.
So we're going to throw up the defenses. We're going to put on the armor. We're going to sound the alarms. But instead of like pulling a fire alarm in a building and getting the sirens and the lights, we're gonna heighten up the feeling state of anxiety or anger or worry or overwhelm. And you may not know. I mean, it's like, how many times have you been in a building and the fire alarm goes off? You don't know what's going on. There's no
Just
fire in your
yesterday,
room.
actually, yeah.
There's no fire in your room. So what's happening? Is this a test? Is this a real deal?
Yep.
And so you just get to safety. Same with, when the anxiety response turns on, the stress response, the fight or flight response turns on, and you get that hit of adrenaline and cortisol, and 300% more blood's moving to the big muscle of your arms to fight this danger, 300% more blood moving to the big muscles of your legs to escape. And you don't know what the danger is. You just know there's something wrong. And so you just feel this anxiety. And another kind of aspect of being human that's great in a lot of aspects, but what you practice, you get better at.
Yeah.
You're learning piano, you're learning guitar, you're learning dance, you're learning martial arts. You go from a white belt to a black belt by practicing, learning a foreign language, learning to walk as a child, learning to ride a bicycle. What you practice, you get better at. But what if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing hiding your feelings? What if you're practicing that worry and that overwhelm? We all know those people in our lives, whether they're family or friends or coworkers or person we see in that cafe on a regular basis, the angry person. You just get angry at whatever it is. And for whatever reason, they taught themselves, maybe at a very young age, to cloak themselves or armor themselves with anger. They've now practiced it so much. It's now literally wired into their brain and wired into their nervous system. So at the drop of a hat, it just happens automatically. Just like we've seen, it's probably maybe seen those incredible videos of maybe the older people who were classical pianists in orchestras and things, and they have Alzheimer's or dementia or something. But so I don't know how to play piano, and then you sit them down at the piano, and all of a sudden, Jesus, and they're kind of surprising themselves. And it's just like it comes from somewhere else, that subconscious part of mind. But what about that anger, or what about that overwhelm, or that worry?
Absolutely.
And relating it to certain aspects of life. Certain aspects of life, if you're feeling anxious and worried walking into work, you're literally kind of anchoring and creating a spatial anchor around this building, around sitting at this desk that is anchoring that feeling state. And so you can train yourself just to be in a particular space, whether it's or someplace at home or and for good things too.
Yeah.
More people might remember this back in high school. Maybe there was that class you really didn't like. The teacher was awful, and the teacher didn't like you. You didn't like the teacher. It was an awful, awful class. You hated it. And so there was this dread walking into that room. And the desks are a certain way, and the bookshelves are a certain way, and the maps on the wall are a certain way, and the teacher's desk up front's a certain way. But then there's that class we really loved. You loved the teacher loved you. It was so exciting to be in that class. That class just flew by. And it was a different feeling. Walls, drywall, 2x4s, desks, same kind of bookshelves, same, maps on the wall. But there was a different feeling to those rooms. And I bet reunion and the rooms were the same. You started walking down that hallway, you would feel that dread even 10, 20 years later, because you have anchored that feeling state to a particular space because of the practice of it all. And so a big part, I think, of, we were talking about mindset, big part of mindset, what are you practicing over and over again? Are you and especially with other people? We were talking about, boundaries that are important to set up for yourself, especially if you've been in a situation, of course, is more likely with family, but if you've had long-term friendships with people, and I'm talking about 25, 30, 40 years, maybe high school or grade school or something, shifting those boundaries can be hard because you've not only trained yourself, you've trained them as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a dance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've each known the steps for so long, and now you're introducing a new dance, and there's going to be some kickback.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to go from, Charleston to all of a sudden doing the tango.
Right.
I was like, but, if you want to continue dancing, we're tangoing now. This is what I got to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I
but
don't know, I just think I love the idea. I mean, man, when I first heard of neuroplasticity and was like, what? There's things we can do to regenerate, rejuvenate, like, do things better, different, whatever. I love even just knowing that. But it's interesting how beautiful our subconscious is, that you introduce a new concept to it, and maybe it's not gonna like do it the very next time to the full extent. But I remember for me, like the thoughts slowing after a new concept was introduced, the next time it came up, just being like, wait a second, I can hear the narrative behind what I was thinking now. Like there is a core belief here, but it was like this small little, interruption from my subconscious going, hey, remember you said the next time this comes up, this is how you'd like to respond. This might be a good time to practice that. Like because I was very committed, because I was a very, very, very reactive person. I woke up in a state of survival. I went to sleep in a state of survival, and I had no idea how to fix any of it. So I was relying on the finite amount of self-control and discipline and motivation that we have every day, and surprise, surprise, that wasn't sufficient. And so on the outside, I looked very angry. And that is the way it presented all the time, because it didn't matter what people said. I was constantly triggered, constantly, because everything was an attack on me, everything.
and that's just not only exhausting mentally and emotionally, but it's exhausting physically.
Yes,
I mean, you can
was.
maybe a lot better in your teenage years and in your 20s. When you start getting in your 30s and 40s, let alone older than that, and it's exhausting to have to constantly deal with that adrenaline rush, to have to deal with that anger, deal with that anxiety and that fear.
Yes, there's a real crash.
And I tell you, that's why I'm guessing majority, and I'm talking probably 85-90% of the people I see are 30s, 40s, 50s, and older. I see people in their 70s and 80s, and very rare. I do see them, but it's very rare I see somebody in their early 20s, let alone
Yeah.
a teenager.
Yeah.
Occasionally, a 9-year-old or 10-year-old, and that's usually because they're dealing with nightmares or something like that. But in terms of actually doing, let's say, more mindset work, like we're talking about mental work, the emotional work, very rare to work with a 20-year-old, and let alone somebody who's really going to take this super duper seriously.
Okay, I'm so sorry. My elderly dog has been left outside and is barking. So now my baby dog is barking. I'm gonna have to go get, because no one's responding to my text. So 1 second.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
Okay, so sorry about that. I was like, why are they not getting this dog? All right.
They probably set up
Okay,
some.
so why do you feel like 20-year-olds are not who you're seeing?
I think one, they may not have the information available to them. Occasionally I'll see a commercial, or a hypnotherapist will come across my feed in Instagram. And like I was saying before, I'm finding myself watching it too much, just trying to understand it, maybe so I can jump on board myself or something. I don't know. But I think when you're getting your information in sound bites and 3-minute or 10-minute increments, because when I was in my 20s, I was struggling a lot with depression and anxiety in my teenage years. And so in my 20s, that's how I found Tony Robbins and some of these other people. I was reading the books.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the library, I knew exactly the sections I needed to go to, like the number code. I knew what the number codes were. And so I'd just walk to that section. I'd walk to the new section. I'd walk of the new books that just came in within the last month or so. And I knew what numbers to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go to the shelves, see what books had been returned. And I read books. And it's not to say that's just what you did. I mean, we didn't, especially in the 80s, the internet really didn't get going in 96, 97 with your 14.4 modem, and really didn't get kicking until, the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, the internet that was available wasn't helpful or useful. You could go chat with people across the country, and that was it. I mean, there really wasn't Ask Jeeves came along later, but at first, literally, I just remember using that IRL chats.
Yeah.
Like,
It's fun to chat with people and talk about your hobbies and things, but to get like serious information. And what's nice about at least the early 2000s is the mid 90s, late 90s is when all the SSRI drugs came, Prozac and things like that, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor kind of things. And like them or dislike them, what at the very least it did was open up that conversation.
mm-hmm.
Well, why would I be needing, why is so many people taking this? Why is it such a popular drug? It's because people are depressed. Why are people depressed? And so it opened up a big conversation that I think the internet was really helpful in directing and connecting people and information, because you could read the research and you get differing points of view, and you could talk to people or read their blog posts about how it worked for them, how it didn't work for them. And it opened up this huge conversation of people being vulnerable. And now it's like, no, it doesn't seem to be any big deal. But back then, I mean, you're showing your heart and you're showing your soul.
Absolutely.
Strangers. And maybe it's all more awful now because people seem to be so mean about everything. But
yeah, they really are. But the blog form really did. It opened up because it was storytelling and it was information that we hadn't heard yet. And it was more long form than a caption that you would see now. And I think that the sound bites have a place if you're somebody who, like, my entire feed is that. I started curating my Instagram feed for self-help stuff years ago. But even when I first learned about trauma, unrelated to veterans and their PTSD, but like all of us can have trauma, I found Dr. Nicole Pera, the holistic psychologist. And it really did change my life because I understood now that this was something happening, a process happening within me, not because I was inherently bad or unlovable, but she talked so much about nervous system regulation, but did not talk about how to regulate emotions or experience emotions. So I still triggered overthinking causing more triggers, just back and forth, reciprocal all day, every day, just not knowing how to stop it.
Yeah. And I think, when I was dealing with my depression, it's the 80s, kind of early 80s, and basically all you had were books or talk therapy. And so it's whatever you could find in the bookstore, wherever you could find the library. And, if you wanted to go to talk therapy, go talk therapy. But I don't, teenagers not really going to understand how to do that. We had the yellow pages, and a lot of that stuff's word of mouth. Hey, who's a therapist you go to? And it's like, that's how you understand that. So really it was just books, way into the 90s, and then a little internet, and then a lot more internet as the 2000s got going. But you had this more long form information. If you really wanted to understand it, you had to read the entire book, because the ending may finally, tie together everything you read in the previous chapter. So you had, obviously if the book's not for you, you don't read the book. But I would go
but if it was, you go get more. Learn more on this topic.
You read every book that person does. Maybe they have workshops. Maybe they're more like a Tony Robbins kind of person, or Mel Robbins or something, and they have workshops or they have classes. And nowadays you can take them online, but back in the day you had to go to a town near you,
and they were very expensive.
Yeah, and that was a big thing. And now you got your telesummits and your webinars and things like that. But back in the day, it was more long form. If you wanted to go workshop, you may have had to drive to the next big city and stay there for 3 or 4 days and sit in some of those Harv Eker workshops are like 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Break and a dinner break, and it was, it wasn't like you're just sitting in a chair writing notes.
Right.
It was exciting, and there's fun music and break up into small groups. But you walk out of there thinking, okay, I can do this. I have a plan. But it took it took like 36 hours.
Yeah.
All together. let alone, and having already read his book, having already taken his online class.
Mm-hmm.
And so, let alone spend a week at a Tony Robbins thing or something, or whoever's doing the class. Nowadays, it just seems so, you get this 3-minute little soundbite of get up in the morning, put your feet on the floor, check in with your heart, and go exercise. It's like, yeah, I'm depressed. I can't get out of bed.
Right. Yeah,
You know?
that's like the never miss a Monday gym bro hustle guy. I hate that stuff. Like I intuitively was like, oh no, Mondays really feel like more of a rest day for me. Like whenever I quit just listening to every piece of advice that others said, just because I just had this natural belief that other people knew better than I did, because on the outside it looked like they were having a better life than me. So, and I did the never miss a Monday thing, and I was like, this is exhausting. I am not get up on Monday after my sleep routine is off and I'm just preparing for a new week and whatever, and go just work my ass off in the gym. Like I'm if I'm tired, I'm going to honor that. And I just quit. I don't work out at all now. But at the time I was like up at 4 a.m. and going to the gym before work and stuff. And I was like, I don't want to go on a Monday, and I'm not going to let these people on Instagram shame me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what if you hate your job, but you have to have your job because you need the health insurance, because the baby's got colic and your mom got diagnosed with dementia? Life can be difficult a lot of the times.
Yes.
And just seeing these people with their fancy cars and their fancy rings and their in shape bodies and dancing around and making $100,000 a week, you're like, you know what? It gets demoralizing and gets frustrating, because more than likely they're not. They're trying to that point.
Exactly.
They're pretty people and everything, but they more than likely, only a handful. It's like actors.
Yes.
Only like 1% or 0.001% or whatever are the Meryl Streeps and Scarlett Johanssons and the George Clooney's and the Brad Pitts, who are like actually making millions and millions of dollars. Everybody else is below the poverty line. And I think the same with a lot of the influencers. They rent their cars, or they have a green screen, or they, whatever. It's not even a real plane. It's just the outer shell of a plane. I don't know, whatever. But people with quote unquote regular lives see the people with the fancy pools and the fancy cars and say, why not me?
Right.
And likely that's not their car. That's not their house. And if they did get to go to Coachella for free, it's because they're just like throwing tickets at everybody who they think might give them some good press.
Right. Exactly. Well, and what I've learned through being an entrepreneur is it's a fake it till you make it world out there. It's presenting yourself as if you've already become the thing you're trying to become. And that's not true for all of like the TikTok people, because, TikTok has its own little like ability to showcase and highlight and give people some money just for some pretty ordinary things. But Instagram, for sure, these people who are pretending, I've learned to see right through it. Like it's kind of like when you learn that not all research is actually like sound, like when I took a research class in grad school, they were like, we did a study. We had to create our own study. It may have even been undergrad, but we had to create a study. And so I don't know why we chose this, but we wanted to see if there was a correlation between religiosity and volunteering.
Oh, right.
I don't know why we chose that, but that's what we did. So we did our own survey. We handed them out ourselves, had to stand out the student union, blah, blah, blah. Well, at the end, we go, so there's not really any succinct data saying that there's a correlation between, she goes, oh, let me teach you something. We call this massaging the data. She's like, if you add these two columns together, that does outweigh this column. So you can say, religiosity does impact volunteering. And I was like, Okay, I'll do that for this because it's not like I'm publishing this paper. I want an A, like whatever. But in my head, I've never let it go because I'm like, great, I will never trust any research again to the full extent that I did before learning that, because people are massaging the data in all kinds of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes they get called out on it. But I think there's so much out there. I remember one of the coolest things I saw somebody do. If you know Amy Cuddy, she did the power poses. She had
Yes.
the third most popular TED Talk of all time. So if you go to, I don't know what it is, tedtalk.org or tedtalk.com or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you go to like the most popular TED Talks, you'll see Amy Cuddy and it's power poses. And she did the research. She was Harvard Business School. She does all the research about how, whether it's the Wonder Woman pose, the Superman pose, putting your feet up on the desk, like pretending you're smoking a cigar kind of thing, that this will actually have changes physiologically within your body and create more confidence, create more, more strength and power into your muscles. And she wrote these papers. He did this big, huge, popular TED Talk, and she got slammed. I'm guessing more likely just because she is a woman who was popular in science, but she got slammed. And I think scientists just like to do that. They see something they don't like and
Yeah.
ridiculous, so they won't actually look into it. But she got slammed for the way some of the research was handled. And there was two people on the paper. One of them just kind of slinked away, and Amy Cuddy's like, all right, I'll do it again. And so what's fascinating about people, that was proven that what didn't work. It's like, well, there were some arguments about maybe the way some of the studies were done. So she did it all again after her TED Talk and proved that it was right. So she took all their arguments, said, thank you for the constructive criticism, although
I will accept that feedback. Thank you.
You're right. Maybe I could have done that better. Let's do it again. And so she found another research partner, did all the research again, and proved her results exactly the same. And so
I did the power pose before and in the middle of my licensure exam as well.
Because it works.
It does.
And if you're going to do a job interview or go on a first date, meet the in-laws for Thanksgiving, do a presentation. If you got to give the big speech at the conference, you're going to do a workshop, you're going to do a breakout session, you got to run the meeting at work, you're looking for investors for your business. Why not set yourself up just like an actor before they go on stage or in front of the camera, just like a athlete before they walk up to the starting line or walk up to home plate or walk up to the mat before a gymnastics championship or something. Put yourself in state. Just notice who you are in the moment. You may be nervous.
Yeah.
This is a new situation. You may be asking for $1 million for your business. You may be 500 people out there and you have to give this speech, or you really want this part in the play or the movie or the band you want to join, let alone taking a test if you're going to be a lawyer, a nurse, a doctor, a real estate agent, or graduate. And put yourself in the state of the person you want to be. And just, do that with life too.
Yeah.
But it takes a little bit of effort. But what if you sat in your car before work? Maybe you don't so much like your job, but in the moment you need the health insurance or you just need the money coming into your bank account, and that's what's there. All right, that's the situation you're in. Who do you want to be? And create that person in your mind. There's your mindset change. Sit in your car before you, and we all have our parking space. It may not be marked as your park, but you always park in that same place.
Yes.
So sit in your parking spot, or maybe change your parking spot because maybe you're associating as you drive in. It's like,
absolutely.
Change your parking spot, change the stuff on your desk, change the pictures, change the calendar. You have a calendar of Paris, put up a calendar of Hawaii. Change the chair you're sitting in because there's a certain feel to different chairs. If you want to go real hardcore, liberate one of those office chairs, a new one that feels different than the one you're currently sitting in. Liberate it, take it home, practice being powerful and strong or peaceful and calm while sitting in that chair, then take it back to work and see how you feel. But in your car and just like, okay, get to work a little bit early, 5 minutes early, sit in your car for 5 minutes or 10 minutes if you can. Whatever exercise you like to do, whatever meditation kind of work you want to do, mindset work you want to do, and think, I am calm. I am powerful. I'm, you're saying at the beginning, I do great on tests. I do great at work. I'm not going to let that idiot from accounting annoy me today. Or if that person from accounting comes up to me about the budget, here's how I'm going to handle it today. If it doesn't work out that way, correct and continue. What can you do tomorrow to make it? But why, and reset yourself at lunchtime or at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock.
Absolutely.
And reset yourself before you walk back into home.
Yes.
A crappy day. You had crappy drive home, the traffic and the lines at the store. Why don't they open up another check stand? And you get home, you're frustrated. Now you're supposed to see your loved ones. It's
right.
Like, just car for a minute. Drive down the block. Sit in the park or whatever before you walk in, because they'll see you in the driveway and they'll come running out. Mommy, let's do this, do that. Just find a nice place a couple blocks away so they don't see you. Let it go. Yes. There's a gazillion. Go on YouTube. There's a gazillion techniques on dealing with stress and tension of the day. Reset yourself before you walk into home, and then the next day, get up, do what you need to do as you drive to work. Park in that space, maybe the new space that you've picked. I'm going to be strong. I'm going to be powerful. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be peaceful. I'm going to be awesome. Change how you feel in your body. Change your body. Amy Cuddy, watch that TED Talk of Amy Cuddy. Change how you are in your body. If you want to change your mindset, want to change your state, breath and body, just change your body. Roll your shoulders. Stay back. Maybe make it look ridiculous, and do the Wonder Woman pose. Or whatever the power pose is. Do two or three jumping jacks. Not enough to really get sweaty, but get the blood going.
Yes.
And see how awesome you're going to be. You open the door with your right hand, start opening the door with your left hand. I don't know. Go through the back door instead of the front door.
I wonder too if poses would help, like on those days where you wake up where you just have like very low energy. I wonder if that would help to.
Yeah, I mean, what's a pose, because the nerves, the information flows both ways. Obviously, when you touch that hot pot, that signal goes from your hand up your arm into your brain and says, "Hey, you're touching a hot pot. Let it go." It goes back down. I did this the other day. I grabbed a spoon that happened to be over a flame on the stove, and I didn't know it, and so I grabbed it, and I didn't think about it. It's just, oh my god.
Yeah.
So the information goes from your body up to your brain, as well as from the brain to the body, and so use your body to communicate to your brain.
Yeah.
The reason why Amy Cuddy did all that research, or the reason she was interested in it, is because she felt that using your body could literally change the chemistry within your brain. So do it. You're low energy. Okay, well, how do you feel when you're high energy? How do you stand? How do you walk? Where are your shoulders?
Yeah.
And now your body is in the position of being high energy, of being peaceful or calm, or whatever. That's why a lot of people do those mudra things. But one good way to anchor that feeling state is with your finger and thumb. So when you're feeling great, you're feeling strong and powerful, you're feeling energetic, press your finger and thumb together, and you can Pavlovian affect that stuff.
Yeah.
I know people very closely. I know people who are the most peaceful, the most kind, the most generous, the most warm-hearted people, open-hearted people you'd ever meet in your life. You get them on the road, they are the most hateful, angry people you've ever met. And they are training themselves to be in this little capsule.
Yes.
Sitting in this certain seat with their hands on a steering wheel. And they are training themselves through body, through emotion, through mindset, to be angry in one certain situation. There are idiots other places in the world, not just on the phone, but it doesn't bother them. Only when they're in the car. And this Jekyll and Hyde thing happens. And my humble opinion is because they've trained themselves to now automatically react anger and frustration.
Right.
Peace and calm of, well, people are just people, and sometimes you have to give them a break because they're going through a hard time. And yeah, that's the rest of the world. But what happens when you're in the car, on the road? And it's because you've trained yourself. What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. What you practice, you get better at. You can literally wire that stuff into your brain and your heart. And so one of the things I tell people, especially in working with hypnotherapy, let's say they have a fear of driving, like being on the highway at 80 miles an hour because they maybe
Yes.
a bad car accident or something, or just it's nerve wracking. If they live, especially if they live in big city, practice being in a car, not driving, not with the car on, but parked safely in your driveway, in your garage, in your parking spot, and listen to the relaxing recordings while in the car with your hands on the steering wheel, with your foot on the brake or the accelerator. The car is not on, no keys anywhere, but you're just practicing being in that environment,
Yeah.
creating a calm, peaceful state of mind and body while being in that car. Then,
I love this because this is an area I'm actually working on. Like, well, first of all, I get road rage really bad. So that part I've done really well because I've just decided, I'm never going to be in a hurry again because no matter why I'm in a hurry, it immediately puts me in survival mode. So I don't want to, like, nothing's worth that ever again. So I'll just be late if I have to. But also, I just get so ragey. And for me, it's that lack of control because I don't get to control everyone on the road. But I also have a ton of anxiety when I'm driving. Like, a couple of highways here are so busy that I just can't handle it. Mostly because they're full of semis and I just don't trust it. And it's so scary to me. And I'm like, I'm going to be 45 this summer. And I don't want to become those people that I see that are like too scared to get on the highway, or they drive 50 on the highway, or like I feel like I'm like slowly heading towards that if I don't get my shit together now. So I have been like trying to like create safety within myself while driving. But I love what you're saying because I need to create the safety in that environment without the high pressure test while learning.
Yeah. And you could even, I'm working with somebody, see him again on Sunday, that again, terrible car accident, and part of it is like, hey, practice in a safe place at home. Find that room, your bedroom, an office, the den, the living room, place where you feel comfortable, and practice these recordings with these exercises. Then in about a week or so, start practicing while sitting in a car that's not moving, that's just parked, emergency brake on, no engine on, just practice in the car. Then in a couple of weeks after that, have somebody drive you around while you're doing it. And, not on the freeway or anything, but, and just slowly practice feeling comfortable. And it's just going to retrain your nervous system around it all. And we're doing the deeper healing work of being in a horrific car accident.
Right.
But you're also training your nervous system like, oh, yeah, okay, this seat's comfortable. I feel safe. I got the seatbelt on. There's airbags everywhere. I can be safe. And but again, it's the practice of it. There's a relentlessness to this work. Is why I tell a lot of people there's two parts to this work of hypnotherapy anyway, and maybe probably talk therapy and other forms of therapy. There's the deep healing work that you do in a session. And we may only be seeing people, hypnotherapy, maybe be seeing people 3, 4, 5 times. This isn't talk therapy. I think that's very important. Everybody should be doing that. It should be required. But this isn't talk therapy. We're not going to be seeing each other for years and years, or months and months. We're going to be seeing 3, 4, 5, 6 times maybe. That's part one. The second part of the healing work and the change work is the practice you do at home. What you practice, you get better at. And if you want that black belt in joy and happiness and confidence and peace of mind and body, of calm, of strength and power, whatever it is you're looking for, you can have it. But there's practice to it. The Dalai Lama still meditates every day. The guy's 90 years old. And if you think anybody was to have it down by now, you think he'd be the Dalai Lama. But he's still practicing. But you read his books. Here we come back to books. Read his books. He talks about the anger and the despair and the sorrow of what's going on in Tibet. Chinese government is still bulldozing down his monasteries, still building roads and railroad tracks and arresting his monks and torturing his monks. And Dalai, he's a human being. He's going to feel that anger and that rage and that sorrow and despair of what's happening and why it's still going on after 70 years or whatever. But every day he's there practicing loving kindness and compassion. He doesn't want that anger to overwhelm him and become his essence. So every day he's practicing loving kindness and compassion. At 90 years old, he's still doing it. And he's not married. He doesn't have any kids. He's not running a small business that's, going to be affected by all the economic stuff that's going on right now. He's got a staff of people to meet his every need and want. Granted, he has great responsibility, but he doesn't have a lot of the life challenges the rest of us do. And yet still there doing the work. Right? We talked a lot about Tony Robbins. There's that documentary about him, I Am Not Your Guru. And it just goes through a week of his life as he's doing one of those big events in one of the arenas. And it shows him in his morning routine. And this is what he does. And that's what the Dalai Lama does. But they're still doing the work. And Tony Robbins jumping into cold plunge, he's jumping on the little trampoline for his adrenal glands or something. He's doing his meditation work. He started in the early 80s. This movie was made just a handful of years ago, 2018, 19 something. He's still doing the work. 40 years later, he's still doing it. Dalai Lama, 85 years later, the Dalai Lama at 5 or 6 years old, he's still doing the work. And so there's a relentlessness to this. You just don't get to, I've set up boundaries and now my life is
right. There's not a destination. That's what I'm learning. You're not going to reach a point at which you just do it all perfectly and you don't ever have to think about stuff again. Something I have to tell clients a lot is like, we're never going to not have to use the tools sometimes. And we have to release ourselves from shame that we have to use the tools. Like we didn't learn the tools so that we would never have to use them again, but we learn them because they're going to be useful. And sometimes maybe it'll be less frequent that you have to open up that toolbox, but like you're going to have to open it up.
Yeah. You can get a black belt, and somebody who gets a black belt in Taekwondo or Judo, they're going to have a big ceremony. They're going to have a big party. They're going to celebrate. And that very next day, that black belt's going to be in the dojo practicing.
Yep.
In a safe place, right? They're not out in a dark alley looking for drunks to go.
Right.
They're in a dojo with pads and mats and people who are watching out for them, wearing the big helmets and whatever to practice.
Yep.
And black belt, that 10th degree black belt in Taekwondo, is going to be in the dojo the very next day after their ceremony, getting his 10th degree black belt. He's going to be practicing, or she's going to be practicing, and it's relentless. Yeah. I mean, you may remember, you might be old enough to remember Jack LaLanne. He was before Richard Simmons in terms of the health.
Oh, okay. Richard Simmons is more mine. Yeah.
It was in the 60s and 70s. It was Jack LaLanne, and he was on Merv Griffin and Dinah Shore and Johnny Carson and all that. He talked about health. He was a vegetarian. He was a juicer. First, like big time vegetarian anybody had ever heard about. And he was buff and powerful, and he had his own line of gyms, the Jack LaLanne gyms. And you get his blender at Kmart, the Jack LaLanne blender. And he did a big birthday celebration every year where he would hook himself up to a harness and pull rowboats with people across a lake. He'd swim across a lake pulling people with rowboats. That was this display of power. He was working out the day before he died at the age of 96.
Holy crap.
But you just don't get to go to a personal trainer once and work out at the gym twice, and you're in shape for 50 years, eating whatever you want to eat.
Right.
You gotta work out. I mean, multiple, and doesn't mean you have to go to the gym or anything. Go find a dance class. Go up a mountain. Ride your bicycle. Whatever you want to do. But you gotta work out. Go dance. You gotta work out your body. You gotta eat right. You gotta watch what you're drinking. And because if you don't, you hurt your ankle or something as you can't exercise for a week, you're gonna feel it. You're going to sit on the scale if you start, eating pizza every night. So it's relentless. Our physical health is relentless. We know this now. We know this. Look at all the Marvel movie people, Scarlett Johansson and Hugh Jackman and whoever else, Robert Downey Jr., all those guys. They just don't work out at the gym for 2 weeks, and they look like they have to work out 2-3 hours every day to look like that. That's why Hugh Jackman quit doing Wolverine.
I don't blame him. I heard about his routine.
Yeah, I read about it. It's extreme. 5,000 calories a day, working out 3 or 4.
Yes.
He did that for 10 years because he always had to be in shape because every other year was a Wolverine movie. So it was easier to just maintain it than to try to get it back. So I can only imagine the money they offered him to do Deadpool 3 to come back as Wolverine and do that all. I mean, the guy's got to be in his 60s. He's older than me, so he's got to be in his 60s. And to put your body through that must have been a huge check they wrote for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fun. But
No.
it's relentless, because the minute he stopped, his body went back to being a, quote unquote
Normal.
normal body.
Yeah.
In his 50s or 60s. He kept in shape and things, but to buff out like that, it's relentless. And so we know that with our physical health, but it's for our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health too. Again, look at the Dalai Lama. Man's
Yeah.
90 years old and he still meditates every day. He does his spiritual practices
Yeah.
all year long, during the different seasons, the different days, different hours of the day. He does his spiritual work. 90 years old, he's still doing it.
That's crazy.
Tony Robbins, 40 years into the personal growth thing, the personal development things, he's still doing the work, let alone teaching about it. He's doing it himself.
Right.
So there's a relentlessness to this all that, you may be feeling better. You've set up those boundaries and that caused maybe some tension, but you worked through that and you've done some deep healing work. Okay. What do you want now? You want more joy? You want more happiness? You want more peace? There's something to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Leg day, there's arm day, there's doing cardio stuff. There's always something to work on with your body. What do you need for your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health? And we can't all do it every day. I mean, there's days and even weeks when I can't get to it due to life circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Things change. Parents get older, kids get older, all that kind of stuff, business and whatnot, taxes. But, correct and continue. Get back to it when you can. And if you only have 5 minutes, do it for 5 minutes. If you don't have an hour and a half, that's okay. I don't have an hour. I mean, if I write my list of what I would like to do, the readings I'd like to do, and the prayers and the meditations and the exercise and the spiritual and the qigong and all the stuff that I'd really like to do, it'd take seriously 5 hours.
Right.
Exercise for an hour, my body, and then exercise my spirit through prayer and meditation, and then read and learn and grow, and then do my spiritual work that's a little deeper in the qigong, and that's 5 hours every day.
Right. And
every
then
day.
wouldn't it be great to have that time, but we don't.
Yeah, and so I do what I can. If I have 5 minutes, I do 5 minutes. It's like I had some time here before our call to do this our chat here, interview, whatever it is, and I got it. I took a shower and I can get ready, and I'm drying myself off, and all of a sudden I moved the towel. There's a bunch of blood on the towel. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, and I'm like, and there's somewhere that somehow I got a cut on my inner thigh, and I must have in the shower done something with the scab or something. I don't know what happened. I was just covered in blood, and it was flowing pretty well. I have no idea what happened, but now it's literally 20 minutes before I'm supposed to talk to you, and state, and I'm going to be peaceful and calm. I'm bleeding, and there's the rug and the towel, and I'm like, should I call her? My God,
you poor thing.
I'm finally kind of just stopped it and put a Band-Aid and threw all the stuff in the washer and got my coffee. Saw me eating my cereal when I was coming in here. And it's just well, I didn't have time to do my life got in the way this morning.
It sure did. My God.
Story, but it's just but I blew my 20 minutes. I had to put myself in state or do my little meditation or do a little bit of qigong or something. Instead, I was dealing with the
cleaning up blood. That sucks, dude.
I was on the floor cleaning up blood off the bathroom floor.
That's not how you want to start your Friday, brother.
And but it's just the example. Sometimes life has different ideas.
Absolutely. And I love this because this is what I've been teaching people through. I created this little workbook. I had a membership program, but it was draining me, so I stopped it. But in that, I did a course called Surviving the Shit Show. And it was building up your inner world so that when your outer world is falling apart, how can you stay in the energy that you want? Like, how do you have a life you're in love with, even when a lot of things are going wrong? How do you get in that energy of peace and joy when a lot of things are going wrong? And when I experience a new trial and then I get through it on the other side, I'll recognize maybe this time I white knuckled a little bit too much through it, and I should have been a little more present and practicing instead of just relying on my subconscious to do the work for me. And I'll notice I'm bracing, I'm tense, and then as the tension leaves, I can then realize, like, oh, I was not doing those things, and here's how I can do it better next time. But I also did a building emotional hygiene course, because people just don't realize, like, you have to stay present, which is the only way to have a good life.
Yeah.
To be in the moment you're living, you have to practice that. It is a real skill, and it's one I did not ever dream of being able to accomplish. I really did not think I could ever get out of my brain. Now, the only time I really have trouble with overthinking is during like PMS. Hormonal fluctuations will do it. But I also know this is just my brain trying to protect me, and hormones are doing this, and I don't have to listen to any of it. I don't have to analyze it. I can just pivot and do the things I know to do to get into the energy that I want to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. And there we go back to that thing of, it's not just a mindset thing. Sometimes there's a little physical thing happening, whether you're in your teenage years, you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, where our bodies, our brains are changing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a stressful situation than seem to have been for seemingly the last 10 years. No, it's not a political thing. It's just like what we're being inundated with.
Yes.
Is stressful.
Tension, man, nonstop.
You feel about it, one side or the other, or no side. It's a stressful situation.
It is, yeah.
And we are all seemingly in fight or flight, and we're running our stress response on high. It's like driving your car in first gear down the highway on 80 miles an hour. You can do it, but it's not meant to work that way.
Right.
So if you want to get away from the tornado, you want to get away from the fire. Yeah, okay, you got to do what you got to do, but you just can't drive to work like that. You can't drive over to Sunday dinner like that. If you're going to start exhausting the body, and I think a lot of us have been exhausted over the last few years, if not decades. And so, correct and continue. What can you do about it? And that's not say you don't want to be responsible with what's happening in the world, but you also have a responsibility to your body. And how good are you to anybody, your family, yourself, to friends, if you're exhausted and mentally incapable of rationally dealing with the challenges.
Right. And that's the difference right there, is if you can't remove yourself from the really loud emotions surrounding all of these events and be able to step back into your peace and back into your joy, you're not doing it right. You need to take some time out.
Yeah. You have to take breaks. You got to rest. I wish we could. It'd be fun to just, rest for an hour a day, and then we had 23 hours a day.
But, right. Wouldn't that be great? And the older we get, the more rest we got to have. That's not a lie.
We need 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. There's occasionally people who need less. But that's not the standard. That's the rarity. That's the mutation. Right. There are people who need 10, 12 hours of sleep. That's the other way. Okay. It's the curve deal. Mm-hmm. Yes. We hear other people who need 2, 3, 4 hours of sleep at night. That's rare. That's amusing. That's interesting, but that's an anomaly. Same with the other people who need 10. And I'm talking like every night. I don't mean like you worked so hard that you slept for 12 hours or your body was sick or something. I'm talking about like, there's some people who need 10, 12 hours of sleep a night. The rest of us on that curve right there in the middle, we need 8, 9 hours of sleep every night, not just once a week or twice a week, every night. And if we don't, and if we do that for months and months, we exhaust the body. We don't fuel it right with the right foods for our body. My mom is 86 years old, 4'11", and my son is 24 years old, 6'3", 250 pounds. They need different
right
their bodies, right? So this is where a nutritionalist comes in real handy to like do the blood work, get yourself looked at by a doctor, go to a nutritionalist who actually, who can write up a plan for your body, for what you're going through, because a 20-year-old needs what different than a 40-year-old needs different than a 60-year-old, and and find some ways to create joy in life, even if it's just. I read one thing, I think it was from Gay and Kathleen Hendricks. They do the Conscious Loving books. I think they were the ones, because their big thing is play and creativity. And I read from them, or I heard one of their lectures or workshops or something. They said a half an hour a week, more if you can. But if you could just do 30 minutes once every 7 days, you would recharge yourself and reset yourself. And whether that's
so true. It's
painting
so
or writing or playing
going
music.
on a hike, playing Uno with my kids, whatever it is that I can do childlike or joyful things.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I've noticed. If I've just white knuckled through a situation and I come out of it feeling really tense, that's the difference for me, is I didn't make the time. I was overwhelmed and tense and stressed. So I didn't go and do the things I like to do for intentional fun and joy. And then when I remember to do that and I make that a priority, no matter what, I'm getting through those situations much better.
Yeah. And that's this minimum. I mean, if you can do more, if you do a half an hour a day, do a half an hour a day. But if you need to, write it on the calendar. Put it on the board at home with everybody's schedule, with the soccer and the business meetings and the networking events. Thursdays from 8 to 8:30 or whatever. This is when it's time for me, and specifically do something creative. If you paint, if you bake, if you play music, do something creative to really feel your juices.
Yeah.
And if you do that twice a week or 3 times a week, join a choir, join a band. There was one of the favorite things I ever heard was there was a group of the elderly at a kind of a rest home kind of thing, kind of a assisted living kind of place. And they all sort of kind of knew how to play instruments. So they created a punk band called One Foot in the Grave. And they literally went out and played shows at punk clubs. And you can look them up on the, I don't think they're around anymore. I think it was about a decade ago or so, but One Foot in the Grave punk band, Google that. And it's just elderly people got together and said, well, we kind of sort of know how to play instruments, so let's be punk.
Oh, fun.
3 chords and some energy. And they were super popular I forget if they're in LA or wherever they were, but
I love that.
They get gigs, more probably for the amusement of old people doing it, but it's
but it's still cool.
Being creative. And they didn't have to learn Mozart or Beethoven.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, I played guitar in high school. Well, let's pick it up again. I mean, a C chord, a G chord. All right, we know a song. You play drums,
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to have to Google it. That's so funny.
Yeah. And so it's like creativity doesn't end at, 50.
Right. And stop limiting what you can do creatively. When we stop applying perfectionist standards to everything we do and do things just for the joy of it, even if it looks ugly at the end of it, just do it because it's fun, not because you're trying to make a living becoming a painter. Maybe you are, but also maybe you're not.
Yeah. Just do it for the fun. And I think that's the difference between doing something creatively as opposed to doing it for business. Paint just to paint. You're not don't do it to get hung in a gallery or at the Met or to sell at the Sunday art in the park thing. Just do it to do it. And so get a piece of cardboard. You don't have to buy a $200 canvas from the artist store. Find a piece of cardboard or just go to a store and get a piece of, I don't know, pressed board or something. You don't have to be expensive about it.
Yeah.
And I know there's and if you just want to practice, get a cheap piece of board, or cheap piece of cardboard. We have at the dump at the landfill, you have a thing where you can donate your paint.
Yeah.
And so throw it into the trash, give it to the dump, and they'll they'll put all the whites together so you can get like white.
Yeah.
Or like, they have some primary colors, and then someone's like, well, here's some blue, here's some yellow. Go, and it's free.
That's so
You
cool.
get yourself
I
like
never knew what they did with it, because we have that too, where you can dispose of your paint like that by giving it to them.
Yeah.
But
And
I
they'll
didn't know they give
mix
it to
all the
me.
whites together. So it's, it's not like, may not be the white you wanted, but if in terms of just wanting to learn how to paint, okay, it's not oils and things like that. It's just house paint, exterior house paint maybe, but grab some yellow, grab some red, and grab some blue.
Right. Have fun with it.
That's our city. But, there are simple ways of, without having to invest a lot of money.
Right.
Nowadays there's so much stuff on YouTube. You want to learn how to play piano?
Exactly.
Videos on YouTube on how to do that, or guitar if you have a guitar. Go on Craigslist. There's always somebody giving away a piano for free. Swear to God, I knew a guy who just collected pianos for free, would fix them up and then sell them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And because pianos are such a pain in the ass to move,
Yep.
they sit in somebody's house for 20 years. Nobody wants a piano.
Right.
They're a pain in the ass, and so they'll literally give them away for free. So you want to learn the piano? Oftentimes, especially in a bigger city, someone's got a piano for free that you can take. Get a U-Haul, get a couple of friends for beer and pizza,
Right.
and, and get someone to tune it up. And these are just crazy. And there's tons of stuff you can do.
There's so much you can do. Absolutely.
And take a minute to figure out what it is for you, but.
Right. Exactly. But that's okay. That's part of the fun, is figuring out what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Is there anything that you want to say just as a final piece?
I think the main thing of this, we've talked about it a lot already, but what I like to leave people with is just, again, what is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. What you practice, you get better at. And so there's a relentlessness to this work. Of course, again, we know that with our physical health. That's a known quantity right there. But what about your mental health and your emotional health? You were just talking about brain elasticity. It's like you can change.
Yeah.
But a bunch of that work is the practice of it. Yes, there's deep healing work, whether you're doing hypnotherapy or breath work or EDMR or talk therapy or whatever you may be doing. First off, congratulations and good on you for taking care of yourself like that. That's part one. Part two is, what are you going to get a black belt in?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want? Joy? You want happiness? You can have it. But sometimes, it takes a minute to get that high kick to the head when you're doing judo.
Right.
You got to make your kung fu strong by practicing. So you got to practice joy. You got to practice happiness. You can have it. You can literally wire yourself. You have been joyful in the past. You've been having, maybe it was when you were 5 at your birthday party. Maybe it was 10 when you had that sleepover. Maybe it was 15 when you went to Disneyland or whatever with your boyfriend or girlfriend. But there's been times when you've been very happy, very joyful. So it's wired in there somewhere. So you just maybe have to dust it off.
Mm-hmm.
But the practice of it, the Dalai Lama still meditates every day. And that doesn't mean you have to meditate, but just like find something.
You got to do something. Yeah, absolutely.
If you have 5 minutes, you don't have 2-3 hours like the Dalai Lama gets because of his staff of people. If you only have 5 minutes, do something for 5 minutes.
I'm getting a black belt in effective communication, not flipping out when people talk to me. Okay. When they don't receive me the way I expected them to, or when they don't give me the feedback I wanted, I'm going to stay calm. I've been working so hard at it, and this just gives me more of a framework. So it just makes me happy.
And here's the thing. This is what I keep telling myself over. And I heard this somewhere. It's, again, it's one of those nice bumper sticker things, something you write on a greeting card. But someone said, if you want more patience in life, does God just give you more patience, or does God put you in situations where you learn to be patient?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get a master's degree in patience,
oh God,
people are coming into your life.
Craig, let me tell you right now, this is what's funny about you saying that. I, in my first book, was very vocal about the fact that when I was very small, like 5, I heard the story of King Solomon in Sunday school. And I started to pray for patience and wisdom every night.
Uh-oh.
For years. And I had a really terrible childhood, as you could probably imagine. Okay. And I'm not saying it's my fault for praying for this thing. I am not saying that. But what I am saying is it was not until last year that I was sitting at this station and being, inundated with tech issues over and over because I had just started the podcast, just had my 1-year anniversary, and just learning stuff that I had no idea what to do. And I knew better than to be like praying for patience after I learned my lesson, but I did finally understand. I sat there and I was like, I get it. I get it. I get it. Until I stop reacting like a psycho to every last minor inconvenience, I'm going to continue to get all these minor inconveniences because I'm saying I want to be a calmer, more peaceful, more joyful, more loving person. Yeah. I'm never going to be those things if I continue to be this person who reacts like a psycho at every little challenge. And I did have to work those muscles. I didn't know how to stay calm in a crisis unless it was like major crisis. And then I was really prepared. I was like, okay, if I have to be the one in charge, I'm the one in charge. I can get us out safely, blah, blah, blah. But little minor inconveniences like my headphones dying, things like that. Oh, honey, it would ruin. So many of my early recordings my voice is so hoarse from crying all of the time. I mean, wailing for hours over really small shit. Okay. But it finally hit me one day. You got to quit. You got to start practicing how to respond to these things or it's never changing. And you're never going to be patient. I was pretty wise, but you're never going to be this person that you want to be if you don't start practicing now. And so I was like, fine. That very moment, I was like, it is okay. Now, I did have to learn better things to say to myself. I had to understand why it was such a big deal to me that I wasn't doing this correctly or that, and why did I feel so fundamentally unsupported by the universe and faith? And, I had to understand none of this shit was happening to me. It was happening for me. And there was always something that I could learn from any of that. But I had to know what I was thinking prior to be able to switch that up. And now I know how to create safety within myself during these little tasks that seem so silly that you would get so upset about. But that was my MO. I reacted to everything, just 0 to 100. That's it. Nothing works out for me. And, I tried not to say stuff like that out loud because I didn't want to be seen as like a negative person or whatever. I'm sure I was. But inside, I felt very victimized by the whole world, but I didn't even realize that. Like, if you had said like, wow, you really see yourself as a victim, I would have slapped you and never spoken to you again. I'm like, me? No, I'm not. That's the exact opposite of what I believe. But I mean, ultimately, I believed that the world was out to get me. And so when I realized that, and I'm like, nobody's out to get you, sis, and just started calming down, just like in the car, I realized it starts with you leaving the house in a hurry. And for no reason. Like, it's not like I was constantly actually about to be late somewhere. It was just, you do these stupid things like, oh, okay, if I leave at this time, then da-da-da, and I'll get there at this time. Now, because I've said that, I have to get there at that time. Late or not, in my head, I've just created a whole race for myself because I was so used to like living in a chaotic space. Now I had to practice how not to be chaos at all times. I had to like understand you got to chill, like get in the car and drive like it doesn't fucking matter what time you get there because it really doesn't.
Yeah. It's funny that because we get into this thing, if only these people stopped annoying me, I could be the peaceful, wise, wonderful person that I know I can be.
You're all robbing me of the opportunity. Yes. I believed that though. No, it's funny that you said that because I actually started thinking about that for a split second very early on in this conversation. Like, oh yeah. And this is why I was able to finally understand, like, you're the problem, not everybody else. But I am a person who very small things really irritate the shit out of me, like really bad. And I will let it fester and just like believe that they are responsible for annoying me. Where now I'm like, okay, there's a couple things you can do. If someone's eating and the sound is just too much for you, you could just get up and walk away. Like, it's not that serious. I hate when we all eat together because there's always somebody making some sort of food noise that's just awful. And I just want to be a bitch about it. But then I'm like, let's be sweet. You can remove yourself from the situation. Or like, I'll be like, I'm so sorry. I'm going to go in there because there's just too much food noise. My kids know I'm crazy. So they're like, oh, okay, sorry. And I'm like, no big deal. But used to, I'd sit there and just be like victimized by it. Like, I can't stand that. And just these little minor annoyances that I just let fester all the time. And now I'm like, you're the problem.
Yeah.
Either stop being annoyed or remove yourself. That's it.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's the minor annoyances of family and coworkers, let alone the bigger stuff that's going on in the world at any given time. Not specifically now, but it seems like it's all piling on right now. And it's like, that's why you got to take time for yourself. Got to take the time to let it go. And I don't mind. I just mean, just let it go. No, there are processes you need to do to de-stress, and whatever, if it's visualization exercises, like just vacuuming it out, or just, getting a pin in your hand and like putting all the tension or your squeezy ball in your in your fist, and like this squeezy ball, this pin is going to vacuum up all this stress, all this. And what color is the stress? What color is the color is the fear? Is it red? Is it something else? And have that ball, have that pen vacuum up all that stress and tension, then drop the ball.
Absolutely. Ooh, I love that. Yeah.
Just throw it behind you. And now it's behind you. What does that mean?
I really like visualization too. Yeah. That's been helpful for me.
And that might mean every day.
Every day.
For a while. And then maybe every other day. And then maybe.
And it's still every time I get in my car. Like, that's the thing. And I have to teach clients that, like, this isn't going away overnight, honey. You've been driving for a minute. So, like, when you're going to be a psycho in the car, it's going to take a little bit for your, like, my natural reaction. I'm embarrassed, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The second I start to get on the highway, there's always some dumbass who's not letting me on, and they're driving too slow and whatever. So immediately I'm like, okay, bitch, are you going to let me on? Every time. Every time. And then I have to correct. And so I'm like, oh, we don't do that anymore. You're not a bitch.
We don't do that anymore. So you're telling your 2-year-old, oh, we don't say that.
We don't say that. Exactly. I'm like, oh no.
That's the first step, awareness. First step's awareness.
Absolutely.
You know you're doing it. And maybe that comes with age. Maybe that's why the young people aren't coming in. They don't notice it yet.
No, for real. I thought that whenever I asked, why do you think? I was thinking, yeah, that's because they fucking know everything. So they're like, oh, I'm teaching you older people how to live. And in some ways that's true. I've learned a lot. I have a 22-year-old. I've learned a lot from him. But lots of them could learn lots of things from me too, and they choose not to. So okay, well, I will let you know when your episode's going to air. And you have a great profile. I will include your links and all of the things. And I'm going to, so you're on Instagram. I like to add the person as collaborator the day that I like make a post about the episode. So I'll make sure I find you before then and follow you. Okay, well, I hope you have a fabulous Friday, and it was really good to meet you, and I'd love to stay connected and collaborate in any way, shape, or form. I always try to make that offer because, I'm looking for my people.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Hey, make sure you've given the show a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're listening to if you haven't already. And check out my website, empoweredwithmelissahepner.org, or my link tree on Instagram at melissa.hepner to check out my latest offers or workshops.
Emotionally unavailable. Emotionally unavailable.
INDEPE and cut.